we wanted to see whether or not using learning materials would improve the students' understanding and retention of some of the numeracy concepts. The students we were working with actually had some pretty low numeracy skills. In fact, when they were assessed on the online tool, the majority of them were at step 2. One student was at step 4. They suffered from, a number of them suffered from maths anxiety. We offered them the opportunity to actually take part in what we were doing, and the first couple of, two of the students basically said, we don't do maths. And you could see by their body language and the rest of it that they weren't too interested. They felt pretty anxious about the whole thing. Just what happens with maths anxiety, the idea of test anxiety, fear of numbers, and fear of the unknown. The students, as I mentioned, had limited attention and retention. There were only 8 learners involved in this. And we started off by discussing with the tutor. I worked alongside the tutor, and we discussed the sorts of things that were required in the field of numeracy, and the tutor came up with these basic ideas. Firstly, 4 basic computations they felt were very necessary. The ability to measure, and I was interested to hear that some of those learners that had difficulty actually measuring using a tape measure. Sure enough, these students had difficulty, or learners had difficulty, actually knowing how to use a ruler, reinforcing what was said earlier. Knowledge of the metric system, things like terms like centimetre, millimetre, these sort of terms the students didn't really understand. When we talked about millimetre, they were thinking large, as in million, as opposed to very small. The tutor also thought it was pretty important that they knew something about square numbers and square roots of numbers. What a right-angled triangle looked like. Knowing how to round to 2 decimal points. And the last thing, being able to estimate the reasonableness of answers. So when you looked at that these students were at step 2, and we look at those items that he felt was fairly important, we can see that step 2, basically you're talking about additive students who, when they're asked to do some multiplication, such as 3 times 4, will actually go 4 plus 4 plus 4. So getting into things like area makes it very difficult. Just a little bit about the Inland Revenue self-assessment. Well, your first mistake is you've subtracted from the taxable income from your reference number. Sort of brings out that importance for literacy and numeracy going together. Actually, at this stage, I should say that I was a little bit disappointed to see the N word wasn't included in the title of today's conference, but that's just me. So we decided that the tutor said, yes, I've got this information from the online tool, but a lot of the information was reasonably generic. So he said, let's have a look, let's take what we've got and make up a little assessment of our own. So we devised a short assessment. We decided that the students would have paper, etc., spare paper to record their workings. We provided them with rulers and also a calculator. The only requirement we said with the calculator was that if they used the calculator to answer any of the questions, we wanted them to write a C beside their answer so we could actually track back and see which ones they used calculators for and which ones they didn't.